Tanase, Tawau, Alycia Two Bears Nitsagasan, Agua Mistawastis Nihayuak First Nation, Otsinia Pogo, Mokinstis Nawigan Megwak. I want to thank the Aunties Dandelion for their Aunties Emergent program, which is funded by Canada's Indigenous Screen Office. With this collaboration, I have the opportunity to guest host and also to invite Otakwan as my guest today, who will be speaking about lateral violence in the modeling realm. I invited her to speak about this because lateral violence is rampant in our communities, and we need to be upholding and uplifting each other. And this podcast is this plethora of decolonization, of sharing our stories and upholding aunties, which is exactly why I wanted this story shared on this platform, because the Aunties Dandelion gives us that safe space to do so. Kinansko Matin for that. I am a student at UBC Midwifery Program, and Otakwan is one of my ceremonial dream walking sisters, and we've met through the internet realms and love each other unconditionally and are that safe place to listen and to vent and to be held and to be prayed for, which I think is so deeply necessary in our communities where jealousy runs wild, and it really doesn't need to. We need to undo competition. And I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Tanse, I'm Otakwan, Achakosasku, I go Otakwan or O. I'm originally from the small northern village of St. Louis, Saskatchewan. It's a Métis settlement. I'm very proud of my heritage and my people, and being Métis, of course. Métis is everything as I was raised in tradition and ceremony. I continue that to this day. I was very lucky to have such beautiful people surrounding me as I grew in my formative years, especially my grandfather, the late Senator John Boucher. He was a respected elder and leader for our communities, and he really imparted that wisdom and tradition on me since a very, very young age. And I'm glad to be able to share that everywhere I go and speak on my nation, because I also think that diversity is key. And being Métis, I feel like there's, no greater honor than being the epitome of diversity ourselves. We're walking diversity.
The conversations I've had before, I'm mixed. So my mom is white and my dad is Nahiu. I always have to defend, I have a different identity than the Métis identity. And we are not the same. And I'm like, it's a different relationship with the land. It's a different relationship with treaty or not having treaty rights, because I do have treaty rights. And I, through my dad's family, come through Chief Mistawasis, who was one of the signers and negotiators of Treaty 6. So I have this very strong identity and connection to upholding treaty rights, and also not being raised in Métis community, which is a huge part of the identity. And if I don't have that, why would I claim that community as mine simply because I'm mixed? And that is something we have in common.
That's so correct, actually. And I've noticed that often people who are not exposed to the Métis identity and culture, they think that Métis simply means mixed, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, we are mixed. Yes, we are a diverse nation, but we did have our ethnogenesis and we did grow. And we are a nation who was birthed from matriarchs, birthed out of necessity, because with our story where we begin, when the first Europeans set hold upon the continent and started to take wives, sometimes they were wives in trade, sometimes they were out of great love. There was all these reasons, and they're just as valid as the others. But in the necessity of these mixed children being birthed on these lands, to these lands, there was a lot of rejection on both sides. And so we decided to create our own nation. And there was something that one of my ancestresses had told my grandfather when he was very young. And she had said, because we fit in neither world, we hold on to our traditions and our people even more tightly. And I feel that is very true for us because I am fortunate enough that the line was not broken in my family. And so we were able to keep those connections to each other in the lands where I'm from. I hold oral tradition that's over 10,000 years old of the land where the river used to be, how people moved across the land, which way they moved across the land, which direction, where we kept our people, because we didn't bury people, where they went after, the area. And to this day, we still keep that area. It's very sacred for us. We know our family knows about it, our cousins know about it. And so we make sure that, where our ancestors were buried in those trees, we don't cut those trees to this very day. Like that area remains forested. And, there's like these beautiful nuances that come with it. But we also are very much rooted in the European ways as well. Like, take, for instance, our jig. It's a mixture of some of the dancing styles from the Irish and sometimes the Scottish, and it's mixed with First Nations, but it's much faster. And, those are both ceremonies from two people that have been passed down to us. And I don't feel like that diminishes what those are in our traditions because they are mixed together. But again, that makes us very distinct and unique in who we are. And we do have belief systems. And there's also these pushes where people believe that Métis are not ceremonial, and myself and other, especially the matriarchs, have been pushing that lately, regarding that we are ceremonial, that we have been taught ceremonial traditions, that we are in ceremony with the land, and that we continue to pass that down and teach what we know to the others. And especially now that we're auntie age, I feel like that's even more relevant, that we have to push even harder to combat some of these narratives that are being created. And I also feel like the lateral violence definitely comes with self colonization, the idea of borders and territories, and not understanding traditionally we were so much more interconnected than what they try to teach us and tell us, especially concerning borders.
Right. Fully agree. And how do you find the modeling realm? Because you have endured bullying both in person and online in the United States and in Canada. How did you find that the online bullying shaped like in-person interactions or bookings?
Oh, that is so tough because that happened in December. I've had some online bullying for quite some time, and it's always the same individuals. That's the thing, right? It's either myself or they're going after other people. There's always a common denominator there, and you have to come at it from, it's hard because our teachings tell us, we don't turn the other cheek. But at the same time, especially being Metis, we're known to be very fierce and warlike. And, our nickname was Not So Noble Savages. And so it's not like us to sit down and take an insult, right? There are many traditional stories, especially when we had dealings with, let's say, like the Lakota, right? We did not let any slights or insults by us whatsoever. We stood our ground, and we still do to this day. And I feel like that's part of the reason that I survived what I did last year. But it seems to be the same people in the modeling industry. I've had conversations with others, many other people over it, what they experienced. And so the biggest part I can say was last December, there was a call out after I was in VIFW because it's a very coveted spot. It's hard to get into. I was one of 4 models that were chosen outside of Supernaturals. And some people were very upset they didn't get in. So they had people in my Facebook who took pictures of me from 2015 where I bleached my eyebrows and dyed my hair bright red. Like, I love fashion. I love changing my look. We're muses. That's what it means to be a storyteller in fashion. And so they based that I was a pretendian. And this whole time I've always posted my family. They are very well known in Canada, very, very well known. You can Google any of them at any time. They are completely, public. I've always spoken where my community, where I'm from, and in all of my bios that I'm Métis Nation Saskatchewan. So it was very strange to me that this had gone as far as it did. The call out went viral. Um, there's a group of women that are adamant on taking me down. They have been since 2019, I believe. Every time I have a booking or I have a project, they take turns calling every single person and telling that I'm a pretendian. And so I have lost bookings in the past. Now I don't anymore, but they definitely targeted me. They stole my identification. I was at a model house a few years ago in 2022 and I was robbed, and I
Hold
tried
on.
to talk about it. And so they had taken my identification and they had posted it publicly all over. I don't know how they have my personal information, like my address, my ex, like everything. They even contacted him. And yeah, they posted it all over online. So I started to get death threats, which I've had them before, but this was a different level. This was coming from other Native women, and they were calling me fake. I was called ugly. I was called disgusting. So I was reading hundreds and hundreds of comments pulling me apart, like my looks, who I was, why I was allowed to be in these realms because I didn't have started getting emotional, the indigenous experience. And none of them knew I grew up as traditionally as you could possibly grow up. And it was devastating to me at the time. And I almost took my life. I ended up climbing a mountain and I didn't eat, I didn't drink. I fully expected not to come back from that. Sort of being emotional. And when I got to the top, I prayed like I know how to do. I drummed and I sang and I danced to the sun as hard as I could. And as I started to come down, I was coming across this very treacherous slope. I fell down a couple times and finally I just cried and gave it to Creator and I said, I'm done. I give up. I give you my life. And then I realized where I was. I was at a sacred site that I couldn't find before. And I looked up and I saw this crack in the top of the mountain and I gave all the last energy I had. And when I walked into there where the sunlight filtered through this crack, I saw all of these pictographs of spirit mountain dancers. And I sat there and I sang to them. And that night I had a beautiful dream. And they told me that they were happy I was there. It was sunny. And they talked to me about the morning sun. And I was healed. Like I felt healed and I felt so good. And slowly I put the pieces of my life back together. And I also thank my community members. My nation wrote a public letter for me that was published, like it was published all over so people could see that I was claimed by my community. My family came for me. All of my cousins came for me. I'm sure you knew some of them or saw it. It was just this beautiful outpouring of support. And then, the post later, they said that they knew I wasn't a pretendian, but then they said I was problematic. So that's why they called me out. I never got an apology from them. They took their post down, but it was really sad to see that. And I think the most heartbreaking part for me was there was a group of 80 models in a chat group. And some of those women, some of those young girls, I had held while they cried. I helped them through their first runway experiences. Anyone that works with me knows that I'm the kindest, most giving person. Like, I will be there for you. I will train you. I will teach you. I will give you all of my knowledge because that's how I was raised in tradition. We share what we have. We help others when we can, and we give kindness. And especially in the Métis way, like our sisterhood is sacred above all else because of what we went through, because of the resistance, because of the wars and the battles we fought. And as women, we were on the front lines. And I feel like a lot of that was taken out of history because, the patriarchal lens and the government, and how they want to frame all of these battles. But we were there beside our men the whole time. Even one of my great great grandmothers was on one of the war councils. And I see that she's often redacted from history, but she was there. She was there with those men like Gabriel Dumas and Louis Riel and her husband Jean Baptiste. And so I think of them when I'm going through these things and what it took, and how we're so close as Métis women and we protect each other. And it's just hard for me to fathom other sisters could be so violent after everything we've gone through in Indian country. Like it was really, really, really like it was staggering. Like I took a step back, and I was like, I had everything that needed to be claimed, including being federally recognized. And I couldn't understand how someone could be so hurtful and ugly in their heart. And I'm not saying that in a malicious way, but it took me time to understand that it's a reflection of how they feel and not who I am and not my journey or where I'm walking through. And I also consulted a lot of my ceremonial people and was like, how do I do this, in a good way? How do I walk with grace through this? Because I feel like I'm being baptized in fire. And they're like, you hold your head up and you smile and you keep going. And now here I am, the first Métis producer of fashion shows. My career is skyrocketing to this day. And it's definitely a story of resilience and survival, and that there's this beautiful journey to take place. And sometimes we need to go through these processes to understand like what our purpose really is, and to know who's close to us and who we should keep close to us. Because now I definitely keep my private life very private and my circle very small, and it's unfortunate, but I had to learn that hard lesson that not everybody wishes the best for you. And when it comes to the US, I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about the Métis Nation. People don't realize that because of the borders and the forced assimilation process in the US, that a lot of the Métis people either became white on paper or they became native. Like one of the instances is like look at the Chippewa. Like there are close cousins. A lot of them are Métis or identify as Métis, and the Métis have been all over down in the south here, like south of the medicine line. And I think of it this way as well. My great grandfather, who I was raised with, that I grew up with, he was born in 1907. That's 2 years after Saskatchewan became a province. In the timeline of things, everyone thinks this is so far removed and it's in the distant past, but these borders are so new, and they're only a few generations. And so I feel like we really have to dismantle those ideas and unlearn to relearn the truth. And you do that by going back to tradition. You do that by going to elders and elderly. You find those pieces, because sometimes things that are written aren't always truthful because they were manipulated or used as propaganda. And there are good aspects to like written documentation, but the real source comes best when we're taking time to visit with our elderlies. That's where the real truth lies, and they can tell you the stories and histories, and it comes from more of a way of knowing and a way of being. So
Mhm.
I don't know if that answers your question, but it was
It
very
absolutely
winded.
is. It actually transitions really well. You talked about how the sisterhood is really important, and I see you actively doing that in the modeling room. Like you said, sharing your knowledge, not hoarding it, not making it a competition, in order to protect upcoming models. Instead of hoarding the spotlight, instead of insisting you be highlighted, you are so generous with your time and your knowledge. I've heard this from younger models, how much they appreciate your
Oh,
kindness on set, on runways, on photo shoots. And it is
I'm getting
deep
emotional. Like,
you to do that after everything that has happened to you. You decided not to put up a wall of armor to push people out and to make it harder for everybody else. You kind of turned around and said, no, this is not happening to anybody else. And I'm going to protect these upcomers and I'm going to nurture them and I'm going to take care of them. And so I know that you have now started creating like frameworks and policy to prevent lateral violence from happening on shows and on shoots. Do you want to share what that looks like?
oh, absolutely. So once I was done with the grieving process of what had happened, I started to think about how I could change the industry from the inside into a better place because it's getting increasingly laterally violent. And I've noticed that in the last 2 years, to be honest. There was a bit there, but now I feel with all the competition and everything going on, it's not always bringing out the best in people. And so, I was like, how can I change this? And of course, some of it goes back to my grandfather again and sitting around the table as a young, mid cis girl and being around leaders and decision makers and medicine people like the old ones and seeing how they navigated these situations. And I thought, okay, well, first, from my grandfather's aspect, because he was a senator and we've had a lot of leaders in our lineage. So I thought, okay, how do we enact policy? So I started to write. And what I did was the first thing is I contacted a Utah Indigenous Fashion Week. It was their inaugural first ever. And I asked them, I was like, do you have an anti-bullying, anti-lateral violence policy in place? And they're like, no, that sounds great. What is that? And I was like, well, I don't quite have one yet, but I can make one. And it started the conversation. And I spoke back and forth on the phone with their board. They loved it. I wrote it up for them and they implemented it. And then when the show came along, they had me read it out and tell my story. And it was beautiful. And then the next group I worked with, I sat on the board for another fashion show for some time. I wrote their policy as well. And now I'm a producer and I've implemented it into mine. And it's so needed because we did already have to use it quite a few times because we had to say, look, you can't be bullying people online because I did implement a social media policy in there. So if there's call outs online or someone's trying to do something, then we say, look, you did sign a contract and you breached the contract, so you have to go. And because we don't want to make it personal, but we have to have a way to buffer and protect other people, especially the youth. And again, it's not just my own experiences. I've seen things in the fashion industry which have disturbed me. And there was a situation last year at a show I was at, and a designer, a young model, she was 15. It was her second show ever. She drove 10 hours to get there on time for the show, nonstop. She got there, she showed up, and the designer in front of everyone, because we're in a green room, so we're all together, she told her, if I would have known what you looked like, I never would have hired you in front of
Ooh.
everyone. And she was yelling. And that girl turned around and started to run. And I grabbed her and I held her and I said, look, let's go have a conversation. And I was like, have you eaten yet? She's like, no. I'm like, let's have a sandwich. Let's drink some water and let's talk. And so I took her to the producers who I knew personally were just the sweetest people. And we got her on another line. And it stopped her from quitting modeling. And later she thanked me. She was like, I would have quit. I never would have came back. I never would have did this. And I was like, you deserve to be here. And I was like, you're absolutely gorgeous. And, I think lateral violence and bullying even extends to like the physical comments or the comments we get about our physical experience and trying to combat body dysmorphia, because I showed up on set one time and I had a designer look at me up and down and they're like, you are fat. And in front of everyone. And I was like, and it was one of my first shoots too. And I was like, or I had another photographer who was like, can we cover her ears? Her ears are ugly.
The big Cree ears always come out.
I was like, ever since then, I'm like, do I have ugly ears? But I feel like that also is bullying because it's like, like,
You're like, that was inside thought about your designs, not right. And here's the thing, a lot of people think, well, you're getting into the modeling world, you know what you're getting into, and it's harsh and it's mean, and you better, honestly, like that aesthetic of still being super skinny, honestly, everything white supremacy upholds: be thin, be starved, be complacent, and be grateful you're even here.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that as well is based upon, because there's certain regions that if you are 23, you're considered older. If you're 25, you shouldn't be modeling anymore. That's actually very common in NYC. And so I've been on set there as well. And I'm always the oldest model. I'm 42 years old. I am generally the oldest model in every single space that I'm in. And I'm there because I deserve to be there. That's how
Yeah.
I feel. And to them, it's like, you don't fit the mold. And I had to really think about that. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I've been in this industry for years. Like, I work very hard. This is a career for me. This is not just a hobby. Like, I take modeling very seriously. And so, um, I was kind of like, I guess I was taken aback at how ageism plays into modeling. And I thought, why? And then I realized much of the colonial standard is built off prepubescent bodies
Yeah.
as being the cultural norm, is being the standard of beauty. And I thought back to when I was a little girl and I wanted to be in fashion so bad. And I would grab those magazines and rip out the pages and put them on my walls. And it was all very, very young, very, very slim white women with blue or gray eyes and blonde hair. There was never anyone that looked like me ever. And even when they started to bring on like African Americans and Black people into the scene, you still didn't see us represented. And to this day, you have to think about it. Who really broke the mold? It was Ashley Callingbull, Kwana. Like, those are the names that we think of in Indigenous fashion. That's in our generation, in our lifetime. And so, it's really great to see that. But again, the standards are not as diverse as they need to be. And here's the difference with Native fashion and why we have to do better and be better. Because we celebrate diversity, we celebrate all of the things, sisterhood. And of course, it's more diverse than that. It's more than just women in the modeling industry.
Yeah.
There's all of us, and they're non-binary. Like, everybody is just as valid. And we have to be showcasing that. And like, even when I was choosing models for my production, I wanted people from all across the continent to be represented. I wanted models that could stand on their nation and say, hey, this is where I'm from. This is what I look like. And I was like, that's beautiful. Like, that's what we're looking for. And if we don't push those narratives, and if we don't push back hard, it will take over Native fashion. And it's sad that we're always fighting for recognition, but we have to stand firm in who we are. And we don't want to be any part of those standards. We want to make our own tables. There's no need to try and sit at other people's tables at this point, because we are the epitome of fashion. Our ancestors did everything with prayer and intention, and they dressed up and they dressed out every single day. They wore their
Mm.
jewelry. They did their hair. They looked good. We still look
I
good.
so funny. Like, you look at old picture, like, oh, everybody looks stunning and beautiful, and it's handcrafted. Like, everything
Yeah.
took time and
Mhm.
effort and seasons. Like, you think about harvesting berries for a certain color. You want it highly
Mhm.
pigmented. You needed lots of berries. Like, and I do really love seeing more designers going, no need for experience,
Mhm.
any body type can come. You can be older. So yeah, over 35 as though that's like so
Over
old. Or
25. They're
42,
like, you're old.
right? I'm just like real old over here. And
We're just the
I do,
Thundercats over here. We're not even cougar aunties anymore.
and they say, like, I was on a shoot with Chandra Fox, who's an absolute sweetheart. It was for Alex's
Oh, I love
and
her. Yeah, Chani.
and
Mhm.
she went to go pick up my daughter because the shoot was running later, and she just was like, you have kids? And I was like, oh, my girl, I got like 5 of them. And she was just like, what? And then she picked up Lennon, who's probably like 16 at the time, and she's like, you have teenagers? And I was like, how old did you think I was? And she was just like, I don't know, like, I was guessing you were like 25, 26. And I was like, you just like made my day, because you're just saying I look well, slept, showered, I ate. Like, regardless of the number, I look like I'm glowing from the inside out. That
Mhm.
is how I take the
Oh,
compliments.
I
I'm like,
love that.
thank you.
Mhm.
I'm like, the same age as your mom, my girls.
Oh yeah, Chani's a sweetheart too. I remember because
Right?
I worked with her in New York City, and I woke up because I had to be on set very early. New York is a whole different beast when it comes to modeling. Like it is, the production and the level is beyond. And you're really on the next level. So you're going all day, all night. And so I was up very early. And I remember picking up my phone and I had a message that my grandmother had passed away. And I had a full day. I think I worked that day for all morning, all night. And I didn't get off set till 2:30 a.m. And Chani was with me the entire day and totally looking out for me because there was a couple times where I was almost breaking down. We were shooting in the Met actually. And I starting to tear up a little bit. And she saw and she came over right away and sat with me and I pulled it back together. I'm like, okay, I gotta shoot. Like I can't cry, right? I had to suppress my emotions because I had to be a professional on set. But she really was there with me the whole day. And I'll never forget that. We were laughing and eating at food trucks and she's a great person, and I see her going really far in this industry because she has a great work ethic. She's super sweet, and she just has everything right. She has the face card, she has the walk, she has the aura. Like every time I see her on set, I'm so enamored. I'm like, she's a great human being. She's not just a great model, and that's what we need to curate in this industry. Is that kindness? Is that community? Is that friendship? And it's more. It's a fashion family, and a lot of people throw that word around but it really is that because you see these people all the time, you work with them. And there's nothing better than walking on set and seeing all the people that you love around you, or even people you haven't met yet that do become your friends. And you're just like, it's an amazing experience. And you all feel beautiful. You're creating art together. And again, it's like, there's something magical about when you get us together as Indigenous storytellers because we really are. So, this is how I think of fashion. You have the designer, and I feel like we have our human lenses, but they're getting that information directly from the universe, right? From creation itself. And then they're building that out, and then they're building this universe. And we're the people that are helping them tell the story. So we get into
Mhm.
character, we put the clothes on, we have the makeup, we get into character, it doesn't matter what it is, and you feel it and you embody it. And then we all have to work together to bring that story forward. And the energy is so amazing, like it really is. But again, going back to lateral violence, if you have a couple people being laterally violent or bullying, then it kills the whole mood and it kills the whole set. And you can see it in people's faces when they're modeling because they're not thinking of their job. They're like, is this person going to jump me? Is this person going to beat me up? Are they going to try and call me out? Are they going to do this, that, or the other? So that's why it's also vital to keep those people that are being very toxic out because they have to do the work and heal themselves, I feel like. Because it's almost like a spiritual sickness. It starts infecting everybody around them. And so, yeah, it's so vital to keep those good people, keep that energy up. And that's kind of also what we're doing with our production that's coming up in Estes Park is that we're making sure that the people that we're vetting, I actually didn't ask for photos. Usually during a production, they'll ask us for
Yes.
measurements, they'll ask us for photos or a comp card. And I asked everyone to give me their social media links. I wanted to have a really feel for these people, right? I want to be like, who am I hiring? Like, what are they about? What's their life like? Do they like fashion? Are they into art? Are they doing this because they want to be a part of something bigger? And again, if I saw certain things, I couldn't accept them into the show because I don't want to carry that energy into other people. I really want that to be super powerful and empowering. And I don't even like having to be able I felt like I was judging people and I didn't like it. Like there was points I was like, I really don't like doing this. I don't like having to choose. But I was like, if I don't choose, then I could potentially bring something in that could harm other people. And so, it was really important because I was on one show and we had an instance where there were three hurt people who were involved in assaulting youth models. And they were my age, they were our age. And they were going out like in groups of women and assaulting these women. And I really felt it had to do with jealousy and lateral violence because one of those girls, I sat with her at a show up north and she so showed me we were sitting down talking and I was like, hey, I'm so glad I finally met you. And I already was aware because I sat on the fashion board about what this girl had gone through in the bullying. So we
Yeah.
had removed the other people and we kept her. And then there was a lot of backlash online, call outs, all of that. But we were like, we're not going to allow people that think assaulting other models is okay. And so she showed me the screenshots, or not the screenshot, she showed me the actual messages that these girls had sent her. And it was just like mine. It was like, "You're disgusting. Your body is ugly. Like, how do you call yourself a model?" And she was crying, right? It's a grieving process. And I held her and I said, "Look," I was like, "My girl, you're beautiful. You're gorgeous. That's why you're here. You're a model. You're natural." And I hyped her up because we had a photo shoot too. Like, I was like, "Girl, we can't be crying." Oh, I hyped her up and she was so thankful and grateful. And I was like, I told her, I was like, the exact same thing happened to me and it happens too often. And we choose. We're adults now. There's no excuses. We choose who we want to be every single day. We wake up in the morning and we always have a choice. And if we want to go out there and be mean, then we need to think about why we're doing that. I've even had moments myself in my life, right, where I'm like, why am I thinking like this about another person? Like, what inside of me is making me feel that way? And then I tried to figure out how I'm feeling that way, why I'm feeling that way, take personal accountability because I don't want to push that off on other people. Like, it's not, we have to do better. The whole world is watching us. And I feel like, especially as natives, as indigenous people, everybody is watching us all the time, our people, non-native people. And it feels like we're set to such a higher standard because if we don't, bring our best foot forward, then people use racial stereotypes against us. And then it's traumatizing. And then we have the youth looking at how we're treating each other and how we're behaving and we're learning. It's like, do we really want to teach them that? Like, to me, it's embarrassing. I'm like, we're there to show them how to walk that red road, like be in a good way, treat each other with kindness, build something for each other. And it's not supposed to be built out of our own egos. It's supposed to be built with those generations of the future in mind. That's how we're supposed to do everything. That's what tradition means. That's what it means to keep going. You think of the future and what you want to set up for them so that they don't have to go through the same things that we went through or as much pain. Like suffering is part of wisdom, but not when it's inflicted in the way that it's being inflicted on each other. And then, of course, we have people that are, I came across something who, a non-native person who was like, "This is the way you people always are. Like, this is how you people behave." And my heart dropped. This person's in fashion, and my heart dropped. I was like, "What?" But that's how some people perceive us, as always fighting, as always being violent. And so it again, if for that lateral violence portion, it really needs to end. And I keep saying that it ends with us. We're the only ones who
Yep.
are going to change it. And it's by being very strict on what we tolerate. Because again, go back to tradition, what happened in our oral histories, and I can't speak for everyone, of course, but the ones that I know, when someone was not behaving properly within the community or being harmful, often they were ejected. Worse things
Yep.
happen too, but that was the first thing. It's like you can't be in part of the community, you have to leave. Like the whole has to be protected and cared for and taken for. And the leaders really, really often thought of everybody before themselves. They were the poorest. They were the ones that were really suffering on the land for our answers to help. It's all about the upcoming youth. And so we really need to change our perspective towards that as well. Like, let's be some good examples for them and also show them that there's no aging out in modeling. Like, you can still do it, you can just keep going. And especially for women, it's like the older you get, the more you step into your power, the more beautiful
Yes.
you really become on many levels. And we can't fear that anymore. And we can't carry that in with the modeling industry either.
I totally agree. The confidence you get when you hit 30 is nothing like when you hit 40 and you
Mm.
no longer care about anything or anybody's opinions anymore. That radiates in a whole other
Mhm.
way. And then 60-year-olds tell me like, wait till you're 60, and 70-year-olds are like, wait till you're 70. And I'm like, oh, this just keeps getting better.
I love
And
that. Mhm.
yes, so I really want to thank you for sharing your story. it means a lot to me that you agreed to do this and to publicly share your story, because I do know how hard it can be to share stories of trauma and impact, because there's always the potential of backlash when we share our stories
Mhm.
instead of victims being upheld and nurtured as it should be.
Mhm.
This is my tobacco to you.
Ah,
Um,
thank you.
Accepting to do this, because that I can send in the mail.
Oh, I'm so thankful.
I am extremely proud to know you and to watch you navigate the realms in which you do, because I know it comes from spirit. I know it comes from your heart. And I know it comes from a deep part of you that wants to protect our youth, to let them have the ambitions and dreams that they want, regardless of what they look like, to be protected. And you are giving that pathway of greater ease into the modeling realm for the youth to flourish. And when we are given softness to do that in any creative realm, what we come up with is absolutely magical. And so thank you
Mhm.
for being that backbone, that voice, and showing others what it looks like to have strong boundaries, not just for yourself, but for others around you, because that is how we all will heal. It's in together, it's not in isolation.
Oh, I love that so much. I'm very thankful for you as well. I've known you for years, and our sisterhood really has transcended many levels from our
It
dreams
has.
to our everyday life. Oh, it's been amazing. Just being able to have someone that I can be vulnerable with has been everything. Especially when, I've been in my deepest, darkest moments. You were there. Like you were right beside me the whole time, checking on me and nurturing me. And I really couldn't have made it through without you. And I'm thankful that I get to tell my story. I'm I'm thankful that I get to sit here as a Métis woman and say, "Hey, this is we're real, we're legitimate. Like this is our place. We deserve a place, and we're gonna come onto the scene whether you want us or not."
That.
Oh my god, we're just gonna bust onto the scene. Sorry. But we're gonna come with love and kindness and gentleness. And you're right. If we don't show people around us kindness and gentleness, it will be hard to thrive when we're in cycles of survival. It's because
Yep.
all you're thinking about is that next thing. How are you going to get through that? The anxiety. And even myself, I notice when I'm really stressed out, I can't connect in as well. I don't feel the same feelings. The sun doesn't feel as warm. The grass isn't as green. All of these things, like I can really feel the disconnect. And that, again, that's a part of that colonial tactic. Keep you in survival, keep you stressed out, keep you fearful. And so if we're perpetuating those cycles on each other, we're not going to help each other grow. And we really have to get back to that community. We have to get back to understanding that we all have things that go on, but when we see one of our people that is in need, we have to be there. And sometimes it means sacrificing ourselves, or, we might be going through all this other stuff. But if you see someone in need, go to them, be that light, be that kindness, help uplift them. If you have talents or gifts, share them. Don't monetize them. That's the other thing, too. People like, you should be selling this, you should be selling this course, you should be doing this, you could be making money with this. And I don't look at it the same. I don't think of capitalism like on those levels, right? I'm thinking of kinship interactions. I'm thinking of different levels of reciprocity. I'm thinking of how can we show up for each other. That's how I think of a lot of these interactions. And so, that's where I feel like we always have to lead. And again, I'm thankful you gave me this opportunity. I'm thankful that you've been in my life. I'm thankful for our dreams. And I'm thankful that we found each other in this time and place under the same sun, because I feel like even that in itself is pretty magical.
It really is. All right.
Mm.
Thank you, Auntie Dandelion, for this opportunity. Thank you, Otakwan, all my relations.
Oh, no.